Hi, everyone. Welcome back to On.net. I'm Becky Buckler. I'm a PM on the .NET Maui team, and I am here today with my buddy Sam from Progress. Now, Sam, we previously did a video on some stuff for Maui controls, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What about Blazor?
It's exciting, a lot of good exciting things, but thanks for having me here. I'm Sam Basu, I'm a dev advocate at Progress Software. You hopefully know us for some of the things we do to make developers a little bit more successful, .NET UI components across web, desktop, and mobile. Now, Becky and me love being in the native land with .NET Maui, iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. That's our jam.
Absolutely.
That's what runs enterprise businesses. Mm-hmm. However, we have friends that tell us apparently the web matters.
Yeah, the web exists too.
Yeah. Let's dive into some web goodness here. So first thing I'm going to tell you is Blazor is awesome.
Blazor is awesome.
Yeah, it's been 4 or 5 years in the making now, and this is so exciting as a .NET developer. Because I'm an old man. I've done a lot of .NET across web and desktop and other things, and we have always had a good story with ASP.NET. Mm-hmm. However, it used to be a lot more server side, and a lot of folks did a lot of JavaScript in the front end. That was fine for SPI applications, but in your heart as a .NET developer, you want to keep doing .NET.
Absolutely.
Right? You want to write more C#. Right, so that's where Steve Sanderson and Dan Roth and the entire Blazor team, we are just so indebted to what they did, because this is taking C# front and back. Mm-hmm. Now you can do .NET not just on your backend, but .NET can run as WebAssembly directly in your browser on the client side.
Yeah.
So it's understandable why .NET developers are excited about Blazor, and this has come such a long way. It runs everywhere. It's super productive. Tooling is great across Visual Studio for Windows, Mac, and VS Code. So come however you want to build Blazor applications, and all of the things that help you write a modern web app are right there. Authentication, security, connecting to data, utilizing JavaScript. You don't have to give up completely on JavaScript.
What if you want to, though?
You have a choice. But again, Becky and me might be biased here. There are people who obviously love JavaScript, and I do enough JavaScript to be dangerous sometimes. Mm-hmm. But that's what runs modern web apps, and that's welcome in Blazor as well. However, I really like the story where now we are crossing over from web land into native land, because like Becky and me can now start inviting our cool web developer friends.
And they are cool, absolutely.
They are cool to come join our journey, because native is a whole other ballgame altogether. And traditionally, web frameworks, web UI has not worked very well on native mobile or desktop applications. I think Blazor Hybrid is trying to change the game for the better. You have had choices with Blazor, progressive web apps. That's a great way to bring your web apps into desktop, but there are some limitations. You're still running on a web canvas. It's not truly a native app. Mm-hmm. You have had Electron before, and that still is a good story. But maybe you have performance concerns. Maybe you want to do things a little bit more leaner. And that's where I think Blazor Hybrid really shines. And a lot of folks might just stumble upon this, but let's just go to the .NET Maui landing page. And it's something that you have to know what you're looking for. So if I'm going into docs here, which thanks to Becky and the whole team, the docs for .NET Maui are amazing.
And getting better every day.
Getting better every day. And this is all open source. We can all contribute to do things. So if I look at the user interface here for any .NET Maui app, so now we're talking native apps. However, if I look at some of the ways in which we present data, so let's look at some controls here. We got all of the layouts and the handlers and pages in .NET Maui, all of that stays. But if I look at how I present data, in there is a little guy called Blazor Web View. Mm-hmm. This is super exciting because it's an abstraction that's pretty smart. It gives you a modern web browser, whichever platform that you're on, right?
That's awesome.
iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac, they all have a web browser. Can't we just borrow the web browser from the user, get a latest evergreen browser, and be able to bring our web UI, our web UI components and styles, all of that into native apps? So that's what this enables. And it's a story of Blazor Hybrid, which I find, rather enticing. As an old school old man, I can mix and match things. I can invite web onto native stack. So all of this is well documented. So your journey begins here. We tell you exactly how to render Blazor web views and bring in Blazor inside of .NET MAUI. However, you might want to get a little bit more love than what's in the box, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, what do you have to show us?
So this is our bread and butter, Telerik.com. That's where all of our .NET UI components and JavaScript UI components begin. Here, I'm going to step away from my, beloved desktop and mobile.
Okay.
I'm going to go into.
Strong, Sam.
I am
Be
being
strong.
strong. I go into web land, and there is a lot. There is a lot of Kenda UI things that we do across jQuery and Angular and React and Vue. That's for all the JavaScript audiences. For all of the ASP.NET stuff, we have done things from Ajax to MVC, Razor Pages, and now Blazor. So we have been on the journey with Blazor for 4+ years now. This is super mature. Compared to even like .NET MAUI, which is 2 years, this is a little bit more matured. So we have 120 plus UI components that are really hard to again build by hand. Your data visualization, your responsiveness, your data management, grids, charts, schedulers, calendars, all the things that enterprise web apps need. It's there for you, and they are super easy to bring in as a NuGet package, and you can just start dropping them in your Blazor application, and they're polished, they're performant, and you have more confidence going in.
Sounds awesome. Sounds like you're taking away a lot of frustration that might come
That's
with
the goal.
some charts and graphs.
Yeah, absolutely. Charts and graphs, pixel perfect rendering on web canvases is difficult still, so that's where the engineering comes in. However, this is not for you and me up until now, because this was meant for web developers squarely. However, now we can bring some of this into native land thanks to .NET MAUI. So we have a whole landing page here for Blazor Hybrid. Now, and as much as Becky and me love .NET MAUI, because that's the evolution, that's the next generation of .NET cross-platform development, Blazor obviously is very welcome in .NET MAUI because of the Blazor web view. And we have access to all of the platform APIs. So unlike PWAs or unlike other ways of bringing in web, we can tap into every .NET MAUI API. So if your web app needs camera, needs geolocation, or GPS, or whatever is your device sensor that you need to get access to, you have it from Blazor code, which is obviously great. However, I think the reality for a lot of folks who run desktop applications is WinUI, WPF, WinForms. These might be slightly older, but it's important because it's running your business. That's what your enterprise workflow is. Blazor Hybrid works very nicely with WPF and WinForms as well, right? And think about this for a second. I'm an old man.
You keep saying that, but I don't believe you.
I've done a lot of WinForms and WPF, and these are things you may have started 10 years, 15 years back, and I can still run WinForms and WPF on .NET 6, .NET 7, .NET 8 tomorrow, the .NET Upgrade Assistants. Those are great. So the runtime can be updated, and with the modern runtimes, I get to utilize that web view, not just inside of MAUI, but inside of just a WPF or WinForms app as well. So I think this is a great story for trying to modernize apps. You don't want to throw away an app that's been running your business for so long, because you have to think about ROI and your investments. Maybe you want to take bite-sized pieces, so you can modernize maybe one screen of your app at a time instead of doing all big bang, right? So I'm excited about Blazor Hybrid because it tries to welcome web and marry it up with all things native with .NET MAUI. So let's take a look what this looks like. So I'm in Visual Studio for Mac here, and again, works the exact same way on Visual Studio for Windows. What I have here is if I do a file, new project, this is kind of boilerplate. If you have the .NET MAUI workloads and the templates installed, you're going to see .NET MAUI and .NET MAUI Blazor app, right? So .NET MAUI is straight up C# and XAML. .NET MAUI with Blazor brings in Blazor. So that's what I have. It's a .NET MAUI with Blazor app template. That's what I'm using. However, I have brought in a few extra goodies.
Ooh, like Santa Claus.
Into this app, yes. So first thing is, if I look at the project file for this project, you'll notice that since this is a .NET MAUI with Blazor project, my project SDK style has Razor.
Right.
So it knows how to render Razor components that Blazor is going to bring in. So without this, a lot of web things will not be very welcome. But now we know how to render Blazor inside of .NET MAUI. Now, I am bringing in a dependency here, and we can look into iOS, Android, or Mac. They all have the same dependencies, a NuGet package here. This is Telerik UI for Blazor. This is a NuGet package that native developers have had no business touching. It's meant for web apps, right? However, it doesn't stop me from bringing it in because I now know how to render Razor components. I can bring in a web library and just drop it in my .NET MAUI.
You are unstoppable.
Yeah, we try. It's good to have flexibility as a developer, right? We can mix and match things. So with just that one NuGet package that I'm bringing in, I can do some extra things. So my Blazor UI components and my pages, they live in this pages directory as you get from a scaffolded default .NET MAUI project. I'm bringing in some extra things here. In my imports.razor, I have two namespaces that I'm bringing in because I want to bring in some of the Blazor UI. In my MAUI program.cs, this is how your .NET MAUI apps bootstrap. This is how your app starts up. Obviously, we need the Blazor web view because this is what you get out of the box, and this is what gives us that flexible web view for iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. In addition, I have one more line of code here that says add Telerik Blazor. And this is all documented, by the way, so it's the getting started experience is very easy. So that one extension method wires up a few things for us. And if I look at my index.html, which is how the app shows you the first web view, I have a couple of CSS and JavaScript references if you need it. And it brings in the web view.js, which Blazor Hybrid does anyways. And now let's look at main page.xaml. Now, Becky and me might be the exception here. I really like XAML. However, I hear that some people don't.
Some people. It's been said before
and
a few times.
I don't know why. I get it that it can get a little verbose sometimes, but tooling is great. I don't understand why, but if you did not like XAML, hypothetically, then this is all the XAML that you ever have to see. Right? Maybe you have a friend who loves doing Blazor development, and you're bringing them into .NET MAUI. This is all the XAML they have to see, because all we are doing here, our entire app UI is going to be driven by the Blazor web view, and it's just pointing to an index.html, and it's pointing to the first Blazor UI component that you want to bring up, because we want to load up our entire Blazor application within the shell of .NET MAUI. So that's all. Then if I look at my index.razor, this is the standard index.razor that you get from the Blazor template. I got my, welcome to your new app. I got the Blazor survey prompt, but I brought in that extra namespace. So now I can do some additional things. I can bring in some Telerik UI for Blazor, which is squarely meant for web apps, but it all works in here. I have a button, I have a barcode, I have a calendar, I have a date picker, I have a circular gauge. I'm just throwing in whatever I can into a single view.
A lot of options. Yeah.
Don't do this, but utilize whatever UI you need for a given view. I'm just throwing it all on one page. So let's go ahead and run this really quick on a Mac Catalyst. So let's do debug and start. So this is going to be no different from a .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid application. It's just going to be running on desktop. However, you see all of this UI.
Yeah.
This is web UI. This is meant for your browser.
Right.
But renders just fine inside the .NET MAUI canvas. And if you wanted to talk to some JavaScript as well, that's welcome too. Because the JS interrupt bridge is right there. But that's a button, that's a barcode, that's a calendar. This is like a circular gauge. I have a card control. Now take a look at this one here. This one is a little date picker here.
Yeah.
And I'm running this on desktop. So I get a drop down, which is kind of lets you pick a date, right?
Yeah.
But this is all web UI. Now there's one line of code here, and again, some of it might be things that you might want to customize. Some of it we will try to help. So that date picker, it's a web date picker, but it has an adaptive mode. Because now we are talking about different form factors, desktop versus mobile.
Right.
And when your screen size shrinks, we should be able to recognize that. So we are setting an adaptive mode of automatic. You can control pixel perfect if you wanted to. So if I just change this up to, let's just go to a smaller form factor, iPhone 14 Pro in this case, and let's debug that as well. And it's going to be a cold start to bring up my iOS simulator. It does a build. And out comes iPhone 14 simulator, same exact app, Blazor running inside of .NET MAUI on iOS, Android, Windows, or Mac. So same app, just looks a little different because we have a smaller form factor. I got my barcodes, I got my calendar, and here's that date picker again.
Yeah, I better not need my reading glasses.
No, because now you're touch. Now it's full screen. Now it's much more touch friendly because like the same thing renders differently because we know that you're on iOS or Android versus Windows or Mac. So we would like to help out as much as possible. So all of the UI that you get from us, it will automatically do adaptive rendering. And then some of it, if you want to do like responsive design of your own, then feel free to. So all of this works, and this essentially Blazor Hybrid for us, it's a big step because for the first time we are saying this works officially. All of the Blazor UI that you have for web now works on .NET MAUI and WPF and WinForms.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, when you are starting to work with this, maybe you run into roadblocks. And this is important for enterprise developers because you want to be able to call up somebody and say, hey, I need support.
Yeah.
And the same engineers who build our UI are the same ones who respond to you. So this is officially and fully supported. So if you run into issues, give us a call, we'll help out. But all of our Blazor UI just works. So I think, Becky, this is exciting. Blazor Hybrid really bridges the gap. It welcomes web developers, especially if you're doing Blazor, into native .NET MAUI land. And it's not just Blazor, it actually also invites Angular and React if you wanted to do. The web view does not actually care. Most web things are welcome. However, let's talk about something I think it's a little bit more realistic.
Okay.
Because think about who does Blazor today. It's web developers, right? You're a .NET developer, you're happily doing Blazor web applications. And all of a sudden we are saying, bring it over to MAUI, right? You don't want to give up on what you're doing for the web applications, right? That's where your present users are.
Yeah.
Maybe what you want to do is reuse some of that Blazor UI, that component model, that rendering now inside of a MAUI app. So you want to still maintain your Blazor application for web, but also reuse that on .NET MAUI or WPF.
We want to be efficient.
Yeah, sharing code is good. So let me show you a solution here where we can try doing that. So here is a solution that says I'm Blazor everywhere, as the name suggests, because we are going to try to take Blazor everywhere. So the first few projects here, file new project. So these are actually web applications. So be it Blazor WebAssembly or be it Blazor server-side, these are web applications with or without a shared backend. But this one happens to be WebAssembly. So this looks just like any other Blazor web application. However, there is one thing missing in here. There's a pages directory, which is something we get in .NET MAUI. If you do the Blazor Hybrid template, that's where the Blazor components live. I have taken it out, because I don't want it to be in the web application.
Where do you want it to be?
In a separate place. So I have also added a .NET MAUI with Blazor project in my one solution. This is a .NET MAUI project with the Blazor template, and this was also missing the pages directory.
Okay.
Because I do not want my UI to be stuck to just web apps or just native apps.
Okay.
I want to share that UI.
Yeah,
right?
sharing is caring.
It absolutely is, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So I have this thing called a shared UI, and this is essentially what Blazor developers will call an RCL, a Razor Class Library. It's not an executable, it's not an app by itself, it's just a placeholder for me to keep my common UI. That's about it. And then that library is referenced from my .NET MAUI app. If I look at my dependencies, my projects, there it's referenced in the shared UI. So .NET MAUI does it. And then if I look at my web app as well, and let's look at dependencies and projects, right there is the shared UI. So both my web app and my native app are now referenced in the shared UI. And all of my pages, all of my CSS, all of my web UI, web goodness now lives in one directory, one library, right? So I can start reusing this a lot more. So this is classic Blazor stuff of how we begin. Notice how we are bringing in some shared UI just so we can get that UI to render. This is how your Blazor application finds the first component. So the routing, all of that is set up. So essentially I'm just pointing it to that shared UI project, and I'm saying go get the layout from that project. So don't expect the layout to be in my Blazor app or my MAUI app, just go get it from that shared UI. Beyond that, everything else looks about the same as a Blazor application. I got some CSS, I got some JavaScript, and then let's keep going here into my Blazor web application. And actually, let's look at how we run this. So if I have a solution like this where I have Blazor for web and Blazor for MAUI all together, I can just choose where I run this app. So this is right now my startup project, it's web app. And notice how it's saying, hey, I know how to run this on Google Chrome because I'm a web app.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and run this really quickly. I'm going to start this up and it says I'm running. The browser is running at localhost 5000. That's my web app. So let's go to localhost 5000, and out comes, a Blazor application that's pretty standard. Like this is the Hello World Blazor application that you get. And everything works. The counter component here obviously works. The difference is these components, both the index and the counter, came from that shared library.
Yeah.
It wasn't, hard-coded in my Blazor application.
Yeah.
And I did that for, on purpose because I want to share that component on .NET MAUI as well, or WPF or WinForms.
Yeah.
So here, I do actually recognize that you're running it on a browser. So it's a web app, and I can actually read window dimensions, which is, you have few options of reading that. This comes from JavaScript, actually. So you don't have to give up on JavaScript entirely if you still want to keep doing it.
Just a little bit won't hurt you.
Yes, it won't hurt you. So that's, Blazor running on web apps as you expect. However, I can now, let's stop this, and I'm going to just switch this up. Notice how easy this is to have the same UI. I'm just switching up which one is my startup project. Now my .NET MAUI app is my startup project, and that also happens to reference the same shared UI. Just to kind of prove a point, we're going to go into www.root, and we're going to talk about the thing that we don't talk about, that's CSS. CSS is nice. It runs web. It runs all types of styling for web apps, and if you are bringing in Blazor inside of .NET MAUI, you should also feel free to bring in CSS and style your app, because it's it's Blazor UI, it's HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You can make it all work together. This one here happens to be the button color that we just saw, and I'm just going to go ahead and change this. So if I do a background color of what's your favorite color, Becky? Let's do green.
Yeah, let's do green.
Let's do green. All right, and so this was the default color, which we're going to comment out and just say green. Now that CSS is an app-wide CSS. So this change will have an impact on my web app and my mobile app or my desktop app altogether. Now it's truly shared UI. So let's go ahead and run the .NET MAUI app now. And we'll fire this up, and now we'll get a desktop application back, but it's the same exact UI. Yeah. So out comes, MAUI hybrid, Blazor hybrid app. If I go to the counter, there's my green button.
Yep, I see the green button.
Yeah, because it's a shared style, and the web app will show the exact same thing. This one here also says I'm running on Mac Catalyst, because now it's sensitive. It knows
smart.
that this is a .NET MAUI app. I have the .NET MAUI APIs to tap into, camera, GPS, anything that you want device sensor-wise. I have easy access to it from Blazor. And I can also read the window or dimensions of my iPad or my iPhone or Android device, so it's all good. And much of this is very easily done. So I actually have a little something called a shared service here. Let's see if I can close this one down, have more space. So here I have an interface that says you want platform name. Like, where is your app running? You want to get the window size of, is it JavaScript? Is it a web-based window? Or are you truly running on native .NET MAUI? Now, these are interfaces, so I can have different implementations of this for Blazor that's running on web versus Blazor that's running on .NET MAUI.
Yeah.
So if I just look at the .NET MAUI implementation, it is super simple. This will be exactly what .NET MAUI apps do. If I look into my services here, platform info, I'm getting the device info. That's a .NET MAUI API. Don't worry about the squigglies. That's just Visual Studio being Visual Studio sometimes.
Sometimes you have to ignore the red squigglies.
But it's all work. It all works clearly. And I'm tapping into device display and getting the height and width. This is standard .NET MAUI stuff. And then I can do similar corresponding things for Blazor, because that's now running on on a web browser. It's a web app. And I can tap into JavaScript if I needed to. I can talk to Blazor and its components. So essentially, I think the world is your oyster. If you think about what the promise of Blazor Hybrid is welcoming Blazor and Blazor developers into native land.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's very friendly there.
Yes, but we do have our pain points. When you have to think about that the fact that you are now not running on the web, you don't have a sandbox. If you wanted to use, or read the user's geolocation, you do have to ask for permissions, because now you're talking, native stuff like Becky and I are used to. You have to go into info plist or the Android manifest file. You have to declare things that your app needs. But with that comes the benefit of all of the .NET MAUI platform API access. It's right there for you to use. So it's just a different ballgame, but the UI part of it can truly be shared between web and native apps. And again, if you don't want to do straight up .NET MAUI, again, Becky and me are not going to, not like you any less, but we understand that, we understand that desktop apps are hard to rewrite from scratch. And then if you have a WinForms or a WPF app, that's welcome too. You can render the same web UI. And all of the Blazor UI that we make, like in Telerik UI for Blazor, 100 plus Blazor UI components for web, all of that now works on all things Maui. So iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac, and Tizen. If you wanted to run your Blazor application on a little fridge or your TV, nothing's stopping you. Big thanks to the .NET Maui team for enabling this. I think just the platform reach is just so nice. And now we can mix and match Blazor in native apps.
Yeah, I love that. After each thing you showed me, I was like, that's so efficient. That's so efficient. So I feel like efficiency was definitely the name of the game for those.
So we have multiple things at play. I mean, .NET Maui gives us the platform, the runtime, and then we are all running on top of .NET. So .NET 6 or 7, .NET 8 is cooking, which is very exciting, right? That's coming in every November. We get a new .NET, and all of the performance goodness that we get in every .NET, we benefit from that. Tooling is solid, Visual Studio, Windows or Mac, and Blazor and .NET Maui are kind of meant to be together because they share the same exact runtime. That's .NET. So when your Blazor application is running inside of .NET Maui and you're rendering the Blazor UI, it's fast. Because it's literally running on the same machine. There is no server, there's nothing being pulled down. So performance is great, and I think we have happy developers with polished UI that's meant for the web now working on native apps.
Yeah, that's why we're both here. We just want happy developers. We want productive developers. So everything that we can do at Maui, everything you guys can do at Progress. It's going to be an exciting game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting times as a .NET developer, and things are only going to get better.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us here today. If you'd like more information, you can check out the links below. And thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.